Welcome back, YouTubers, to Aqua Girl Talks. I'm going to make a quick video about this tank. This is a commission tank that I have made for a client of mine, and it's going home tomorrow. So I will not have time tomorrow morning to make a video, so you'll have to bear with me as the tank is cloudy because I have just made some final decisions on the scape, and I've done a water change, and I've just kind of messed around in here. So it's a little bit cloudy, so we'll just have to see through it, and I'll definitely post some pictures tomorrow on my Instagram and Facebook of it all cleared up. But for now, you'll just have to imagine it and how perfect it is with clear water. So this is a 4.4 gallon tank, and it is home to 2 African dwarf frogs. That's all that is in it, although she may definitely put a betta in it if she chooses to at some other point along with the African dwarf frogs. But for now, frog tank. So I'm going to go over how I set this up and what's in it and what's included and all the good details. So thanks for watching. I started off using a 4.4 gallon rimless nano tank. In a frog tank, you really want hiding places. They really like to hide under driftwood, in my experience. So I chose a piece of driftwood that had a lot of space underneath where they could hide and sleep at night. Another thing African dwarf frogs like is floating plants. So I grabbed a couple of floating plant species from my other tanks and I started growing them in this tank. I've kept the filtration very simple so that the new owner, being an inexperienced frog keeper, will have no trouble. I've used a sponge filter that's capable of filtering up to 10 gallons, which will be just perfect for this 4-gallon tank. Whenever I make a tank for a beginner, I try to keep all the plant species really simple so that I won't be getting a lot of calls a month later that a lot of the plants have died. So I've just used very simple plants like Anubias and floating plants, Frogbit, water lettuce, and Slavinia minima. I've used blyxa, which is actually from one of my tanks where I consider it a high-tech tank. I use a lot of fertilizers and a lot of CO2, but I have found with experimenting over time that blyxa japonica does really well in low tech. I haven't had any problems with it, so I'm very excited to be placing it in this tank. It's the grass-like plant pictured. I also used Anacharis, which is pictured here. It's a floating plant, grows really easy, and then there's all the floaters. They'll grow really long roots down to the substrate. Frogs love to stick their faces out of the top, but have coverage so that they're not feeling exposed. And I used some Brazilian pennywort, which is a very low light, easy plant. And lastly, I used a clip-on light with touch activation, and you can switch it from moonlight to warm light and also a cool light setting depending on the ambiance you want in the tank. I also chose a preset heater to keep the tank around 78 degrees year-round. The maintenance on this tank will be really easy for a beginner. The only thing it will need is a weekly partial water change of 25 to 50% and fresh dechlorinated tap water put in right behind that. Is what I am going to include with the tank for my client so that she can automatically right away maintenance her tank and have the tools she needs. So what's not pictured is that I'm going to send home some live bloodworms with her. Frogs, African dwarf frogs, they do best on a live bloodworm diet. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The main reason is that they really can't see. They have eyes, but they really can't see their food. So if you're going to be feeding African dwarf frogs flakes or frozen worms or frozen brine or something like that, you're going to need to use a baster. It's not that it's not possible, it's just that they need to see their food move in order for them to catch a glimpse of it and be able to eat it. So I find that live worms, as gross as it may seem, it's the easiest thing to do. I just take my baster, I suck them out of the cup that I keep in my refrigerator, and I just place the worms right in front of the frogs. And then they find it, and they can hunt them all the time. Some of the worms will find their way into the gravel and they might pop up later, and so your frog can hunt like it would in its natural territory. So I think that's really a cool thing to do. However, if you are squeamish and you don't find that you want to feed live worms and you still want to have African dwarf frogs, that's totally fine. what you do in that case, and what I did while I was learning, is I defrosted frozen bloodworms or frozen brine, and I sucked it out of the container mixed with water, and I just kind of had to squirt it through the baster in front of the frog. In this case, I had to tap the tank and train the frog to come to the sound of the tapping on the tank. So I would never tap on the tank until it was feeding time. So my frogs eventually learned that tapping on the tank meant to come to the front and have dinner. So this is frustrating. It might take a while, but they will figure it out. If you can't figure it out with them, you're just gonna have to scoot it around and find them in the tank first, or move them to the front of the tank with the baster. So you'll figure it out. They are not suicidal. They will eat. So you'll figure it out. Anyway, what I was saying was, you'll take the frozen food and squeeze it out right in front of the frog, and they're gonna immediately grab at it with their mouth. And that's pretty much what you're gonna have to do over and over and over, because the food's not gonna move. So the frog probably isn't gonna find it until the frog is more like an adult and is used to it, and the frog might then be able to eat the food unassisted with just the one dispersal of the food. But while they're babies, or even while they're adults, like I said, they might never be able to hunt their food unless it's live. So I just use the baster and I continually suck the food up and shoot it right back out in their face, and they keep grabbing it and they take a bite every time. So you're just gonna have to sit there for a while. And frogs, they don't need to eat every day, so this isn't something that you have to do every day. I would feed them more often when they're babies, but when they're an adults, you can get away with feeding them twice a week and just sit there with the baster for a little bit if you're not feeding live food, and until they continuously take bites. So suck the frozen bloodworms up and shoot them back out. Suck them up, shoot them out right in front of the frog's face. And that's the only way they're gonna see it, flat out. So I'm sure there's people out there that will tell you that they've had success feeding African dwarf frogs flakes or tadpole bites or whatever it is. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying that I haven't witnessed them being able to see food unless I'm manually moving it for them or I'm feeding them live food. And I suggest that you start out that way because it's just easier for everyone. So anyway, so that's what the baster is for. I will give this to her when I give her her tank tomorrow. I have also included prime dechlorinator. I personally use reverse osmosis water and I remineralize it, but because I'm making this tank for someone that I know is not going to be using reverse osmosis water, at least not in the beginning, I have been using tap water for these frogs this whole time, because they should be used to what they're going to be in, and I'm not going to, and same with my plants. I have all live plants in there. So I wanted to start out with tap water so that the plants could acclimate to tap water, and that my client isn't going to have a problem acclimating her plants or have a big melt back of the plants when they get introduced to her tap water. So that is why I have gone ahead and just used tap water this whole last month I've had this tank going. So I'm including prime dechlorinator because there is chlorine in tap water. Again, I use RODI water. There isn't chlorine in it. I don't use prime on a regular basis, but I am including it for her. It's important, and she will probably go through this quickly. And then lastly, I have included a gravel vacuum. I don't necessarily think that gravel is going to need to be vacuumed because I do have a couple plants in there, but this is going to help her siphon out the water to do water changes. And when I do water changes on my nano tanks, I just leave a 1 gallon pitcher on the floor and I just siphon the water out into the pitcher until the gallon fills up, and then I replace the 1 gallon of old water with the dechlorinated new tap water. So that's all she's really going to have to do. So that is pretty much it. If you have any questions, or if you have more questions about feeding frogs, African dwarf frogs, or just their general care, there is, I guess I'm still getting used to making these videos, so I will have, I guess, already gone over everything that's included in the tank by the time you watch this. So that was unnecessary, but again, like, I'm just being real. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I was just going to say that there is also a heater in the tank and just go over their brief care. So African dwarf frogs, they are tropical frogs. So it's naturally, they would be in water that is 78 degrees-ish. 76 to 82 is fine for African dwarf frogs. Their tank is filtered, and of course they have a light over the tank for their plants. So anyway, I don't need to say all that because you probably just heard me say it in my voiceover. So anyway, thanks for bearing with me, and thanks for letting me work out the kinks and for supporting me, and I will hopefully make some more videos soon as long as you guys will all have me. So anyway, take care, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will put up some more pictures of the tank on my Instagram, A Beta World, and probably on my Facebook too. So anyway, thanks for following, and I will see you guys next time.